I had never wanted to become entangled with the Shen family again, yet when I opened my eyes, I found myself beneath a ceiling painted in gold and jade. Music from strings and flutes drifted through the hall, and on the table before me lay my painting, Spring Across the Nine Provinces, its ink not yet dry. The emperor sat upon the throne and clapped with delight. An excellent painting! I had thought that a talented young lady like this would be well matched with one of my sons. Still, I have heard that the Shu and Shen families have long intended to unite through marriage. Today, I shall simply help matters along and bestow a marriage upon the two households. It will be another flower added to an already beautiful brocade. The entire hall erupted in congratulation. Shen Zhao sat across from me, bright-eyed and full of youthful confidence. Smiling, he adjusted his robes and hat, ready to rise and thank the emperor the moment the decree named him. In my previous life, I had been just as delighted. I had believed it was a match ordained by heaven, a marriage destined for perfect happiness. But less than a year after I entered the Shen household, Shen Zhao brought Song Jiwei back from the border. She had taken a blade meant for him and nearly lost her life. The wound had damaged her health and compromised her reputation, leaving her unable to marry. Shen Zhao told me that husband and wife were one body. Since Song Jiwei had saved his life, everyone in the Shen household was to treat her as a benefactor. She would live in the manor under the title of concubine, and no one was permitted to let her suffer even the slightest grievance. I endured it all. In the end, my endurance brought me to a death in childbirth, taking my unborn child with me. It had been raining on the day I died. Shen Zhao hurried into my room and stared at the chaos around the bed. It is only childbirth. How did it become like this? The physician examined my pulse and said, "The young madam suffered a blow to the abdomen. The child has turned into the wrong position, and she is losing too much blood. The delivery is extremely dangerous." My little maid sobbed so hard she could scarcely breathe. It was Concubine Song. Her cat suddenly went wild and rushed into the room. Concubine Song chased it inside and knocked the young madam down. She released that cat on purpose. Shen Zhao gave the maid an icy glance. It was an accident. Do not falsely accuse an innocent person. Jiwei is the kindest of women. I already promised that after the child was born, I would let her raise it. She was delighted. Why would she do anything so cruel? At those words, it felt as though every drop of blood had been drained from my body. A coldness pierced straight into my bones. Even the child I had risked my life to carry. He intended to give that child to another woman. Shen Zhao saw me staring at him and seemed to realize that his words had gone too far. His voice softened. He came to the bedside and bent over me. "Rulan, Jiwei ruined her health saving me. She will never be able to bear a child. She has suffered greatly. You have always been generous. Yield to her this once. From now on, I will only come to your room. We can still have other children. All right?" I turned my face away from his hand. Tears slipped silently into my hair. A commotion suddenly broke out beyond the room. Song Jiwei's maid stumbled inside. "Second young master, something terrible has happened." When Concubine Song heard that the young madam was having a difficult labor, she became frantic. On her way past the lake, she slipped and fell in. She has been rescued, but she is unconscious and burning with fever. Shen Zhao's expression changed at once. He turned and shouted at everyone in my room. Jiwei nearly died because she was trying to visit the young madam. Her concern is so sincere, yet you still dare suspect her? He hurried toward the door, then stopped after 2 steps. "Leave the midwives here. Physician, come with me and save her first." One of the midwives rushed forward. "Second young master, you must not. The young madam cannot do without the physician. I will bring him back shortly." "Nothing will happen," Shen Zhao answered impatiently and led the physician away. The rain grew heavier, the wind rattled the window frames, and the room filled with the metallic scent of blood. The 2 midwives worked with blood-slick hands. One pressed hard against my abdomen, trying to force the child downward, while the other reached inside little by little, attempting to turn the child back into the proper position. Yet my body grew colder by the moment. Blood spread beneath me, hot and sticky, and soon soaked through the bedding. What a calamity! What a calamity! The midwives no longer dared force the child downward. One of them trembled as she searched for medicine to stop the bleeding. "Young madam, hold on a little longer. The physician will be back soon." But I could no longer hold on. The child in my womb gradually stopped moving and my consciousness began to fade. In my delirium, I remembered Shen Zhao holding my hand many years earlier. "Rulan, wait a few more days. I will come and marry you." So even vows could truly change. I slowly closed my eyes. Then my body suddenly became light and I floated above the bed. The senior housekeeper was the first to recover. She staggered outside to announce my death. Not long afterward, hurried footsteps pounded through the rain. Rulan, Shen Zhao, drenched from head to toe, rushed into the room. He walked to the bed one step at a time, but the instant his fingertips touched my face, he jerked them back. Cold, he murmured. He turned toward the physician behind him. Why is she so cold? Examine her. The physician was silent for a long moment before finally speaking. Second young master, madam has passed away. This old physician was unable to save her. Silence! Shen Zhao's eyes turned bloodshot. Women give birth every day. It is merely a period of pain. How could she die? No one dared answer. Only broken sobs filled the room. What are you crying for? He roared. She only fainted from the pain. Who gave you permission to announce her death? Go and prepare medicine. The room fell completely silent. No one moved. At last, faced with their stillness, he seemed to accept the truth. His fury slowly drained away. After a very long time, he said, My wife and I wish to rest. All of you, leave. Second young master. Someone tried to persuade him. Get out! He kicked the man aside, his eyes red with rage. Get out of here! The servants fled in terror. Once everyone had gone, he closed the door and lay down beside me without removing his wet clothes. Sleep, Rulan. He carefully smoothed every strand of hair from my face. Tomorrow morning, I will take you to the estate outside the city. The apricot blossoms are beautiful there. He drove away everyone who came to prepare my body and guarded me day and night. He neither ate nor drank, and he refused to sleep. Because he would not allow the burial, my body remained in the dampness of late spring. It gradually swelled and began to give off the odor of decay, until the entire household could bear it no longer. The Marca household finally summoned a wandering Taoist priest from outside the city. Wearing an old Taoist robe, the priest circled my coffin 3 times. This lady bears too much resentment. Her 3 souls refuse to enter reincarnation. She has become a vengeful spirit and is clinging to your young master. If this continues for a few more days, his life may be in danger. What nonsense. When had I ever clung to Shen Zhao? He was the one who had refused to bury me, trapping my soul in that tiny place. The priest continued. Her resentment arose from her marriage. She died without receiving her husband's love, and thus her grievance has become fierce. You must arrange a ghost marriage for her with a deceased man whose birth characters match hers. Only then can her resentment be suppressed. Otherwise, this entire household will know no peace. The Shen family was an old noble house and considered ghost marriage extremely inauspicious. But at that very moment, news arrived from Jiangnan. The eldest son, who had been recuperating there for years, had died the previous night. His coffin was already on the road back to the capital. He was the only son of the old marquis's first wife. Unfortunately, his mother had died young, leaving him alone. Over the years, nearly everyone in the household had forgotten that such a person still existed, yet he had died at precisely that time. The family could not help thinking of the priest's words. Since the priest insisted that only a ghost marriage could avert disaster, and since the eldest young master had been sickly all his life and had never married, my former mother-in-law seized the opportunity. Without telling my maiden family or Shen Zhao, she secretly joined me in ghost marriage to the eldest son, Shen Yi. Alive, I had belonged to the Shen family. Dead, I was still expected to remain one of their ghosts. My resentment only deepened. Night after night, I flew to the priest's bedside and harassed him until his face turned ashen and he grew thinner by the day. At last he sighed. Very well, let hatred repay hatred and grievance answer grievance. This poor Taoist will defy heaven and open a road of rebirth for you. But there is one condition. You have already formed a spirit marriage with that young master. If you live again, you may only become his wife. If you defy this bond, great disaster will follow. Those words still echoed in my ears. Given a second life, I no longer dared gamble with my future or my life. Fortunately, I had heard that the eldest young master was weak and chronically ill. Whatever else happened, he could hardly do anything too outrageous. So I rose and walked before the throne. Then I knelt. Your Majesty, this subject's daughter has long admired the upright traditions of the Shen family. I am willing to marry their eldest son, Shen Yi. I humbly beg your Majesty to bestow the marriage. The hall fell silent. A moment later, whispers burst out everywhere. Shen Yi was the eldest legitimate son of the Shen family. 3 years earlier, in the southwest, he had been thrown from a frightened horse while saving the crown prince. His eyes had been injured, leaving him completely blind. After returning to the capital, his temperament became strange and withdrawn, and he had never again stepped outside the manor. Rumor said that he drank every day and had a violent, unpredictable temper. Everyone in the household kept their distance from him. Even Lord Shen could do nothing with him. Every noble young lady in the capital avoided his name. No one wished to leap into such a pit of fire. Naturally, he was not present at the palace banquet. The smile froze on Shen Zhao's face. He stared at me in disbelief. Even the emperor looked surprised. You wish to marry Shen Daolang? Yes. My voice was calm. The hall grew silent again. Only the crown prince appeared delighted. Younger sister Su, are you truly willing to marry brother Shen? I am. I raised my head and looked at him. Eldest young master Shen is loyal and righteous beyond compare. I have admired him for a long time. I am willing to accompany him for life and will never regret it. The crown prince clasped his hands toward the emperor. Father Emperor, brother Shen lost his sight saving my life. I have blamed myself day and night, wishing I could have suffered in his place. Now that the Shu family's daughter has such sincere intentions, I beg Father Emperor to fulfill their wish. Before the emperor could answer, he turned to my father. Lord Shu, please be at ease. Though brother Shen cannot see, his character is noble and his learning exceptional. He will never mistreat your daughter. If she should ever face hardship, I will personally protect her and will not allow her to suffer the slightest grievance. My father had always loved me dearly. In my previous life, after my death, he had believed only that his daughter had been ill-fated. Everyone said that giving birth placed one foot before the gates of death, and Shen Zhao's apparent grief had nearly driven him mad. Because of that, my father had not blamed the Shen household too harshly. Now seeing that I insisted on marrying Shen Yi, and that the crown prince supported the match so warmly, my father was still worried. Yet he could hardly reject the imperial family's goodwill. He could only say that he would leave everything to His Majesty's decision. The emperor considered for a moment, then smiled. You are indeed a young woman of affection and honor. I shall confer upon you the title County Lady Anping, and bestow your marriage to Shen Yi, eldest son of the Shen family. By the time the palace banquet ended, it was already deep into the night. Shen Zhao chased me down the stone steps. Shu Rulan, stop! I did. What was the meaning of that? He blocked my path, the corners of his eyes red. Yesterday, we clearly agreed that I would come to your residence in a few days and ask for your hand. Yet today, you turned around and asked to marry my elder brother. So what if we spoke of it? I answered indifferently. It was only a joke. It cannot be treated as a promise. A joke? During the banquet just now, I was the one grinding ink for your painting. What do you take me for? What did I take him for? I looked into the distance. Then let us say you were part of the joke. The words struck him speechless. After a long silence, he still refused to believe me. Rulan, tell me the truth. Did someone force you? Was it your father? Or was it the crown prince? No one forced me. I cut him off. Everyone says that eldest young master Shen was once open and honorable, a gentleman like polished jade. I have heard so much of him that I admired him long ago. Open and honorable? Shen Zhao laughed in anger. You have never even met him. Besides, now he is. That need not concern second young master. I turned my face away. When we meet again, remember to address me as sister-in-law. News that I was to marry Shen Yi quickly spread across the capital. I had worried that Shen Yi might object. After all, I had imposed the marriage upon him without asking. I had also heard that his stepmother, my mother-in-law in my previous life, had arranged several matches for him over the years and sent many women to his residence. He had thrown every woman out together with the gifts she brought. People in the capital therefore whispered that perhaps, besides his blindness, the eldest young master suffered from some unmentionable condition. Unexpectedly, when this imperial decree arrived, he accepted it in silence. Shen Zhao, on the other hand, created an uproar. First, he behaved improperly before the throne and begged the emperor to withdraw the decree. Then he spread word throughout the capital that Shen Yi had long been mentally unstable and violently cruel. The crown prince's men beat him severely and threw him back into the Shen manor. Still injured, Shen Zhao dragged himself to see me. Rulan, would you truly rather stay beside a blind man than look at me one more time? How laughable. When I had loved him most, he brought Song Jue into our home. I too had once humbled myself so completely. Had he looked at me one more time then? At that moment, someone arrived from the palace. The crown princess had heard of my skill in painting and invited me to the Eastern Palace to paint for her. I changed clothes and, beneath Shen Zhao's despairing gaze, followed the palace attendant away. The attendant led me through corridors and courtyards, turning again and again, until at last he brought me to a lake. Beneath the drooping willows sat a man facing the water. He wore a long moon-white robe. His black hair was neatly tied and a pure white ribbon covered his eyes. His face was slightly raised. Sunlight filtered through the willow branches and fell across his features, making him look as cool and flawless as jade. The attendant bowed. Young Master Shen has a few words for County Lady Anping. This servant will withdraw. So this was Shen Yi. It was the first time I had seen him alive. In my previous life, he had already gone to Jiangnan by the time I married Shen Zhao. Now he sat quietly amid the spring scenery, not yet worn thin by illness and drink. I stood several steps away, staring at his back. Miss, he spoke first. Without turning, he inclined his face slightly toward me. You and my younger brother were said to be in love. Why did you suddenly ask to marry a useless man like me? I collected myself and stepped closer. Young master misunderstands. Second young master and I merely spent more time together than was proper. There was never a private romance between us. He gave a faint laugh, as though he had expected that answer. Then do you know that last night my younger brother put poison in my wine to stop this marriage? Had I not smelled it, I might already be a corpse. My heart tightened. I had not imagined Shen Zhao would become so reckless. Yet Shen Yi was too calm, so calm that it seemed strange. The rumors were not entirely false. His heart was indeed cold, even toward his own life. I felt guilty. This had happened because I had not explained matters clearly. Young master need not worry. Once I return, I will explain everything to him myself. There is no need. He slowly rose and walked toward me. I am willing to give you one more chance. He felt for my hand and gently took it. I trembled and instinctively tried to pull away, but he held me firmly and guided my fingers upward to his brow. Under his direction, my fingertips traced the curve of his eyebrow and came to fist upon the white ribbon covering his eyes. Look at me, he said softly. I am blind. My old illness cannot be cured. My temper is strange. I may not live many more years. Do you truly wish to marry a ruined man like me? Before I could answer, he released my hand and tucked his own back into his sleeve. If you still choose me, I will deal with Shen Zhao. No one will dare interfere in our marriage again. If you regret your choice, it is not too late. I guarantee that no one will dare speak ill of you. I will resolve everything, he repeated. Everything. The lake wind lifted one corner of his moon-white robe. I choose you, I said without hesitation. The words escaped before I had time to think. More importantly, I had no other choice. Shen Yi laughed. Good. Tomorrow I will personally visit the Su residence with the betrothal gifts. He kept his word. From the formal proposal to the exchange of auspicious documents and the selection of the wedding date, every ceremony followed one after another, so quickly that it seemed he feared I might change my mind. On the wedding day, I had expected to kneel before the old Marquis and his wife again. In my previous life, I had knelt before them countless times, greeting them morning and evening without ever neglecting my duty. But when the master of ceremonies called the rites, I discovered that only the Marquis sat in the place of honor. When we entered the bridal chamber, I thought that since Shen Yi could not see, I might as well lift my own red veil. I then reached up to remove the heavy phoenix crown. Hearing the movement, he laughed softly. My wife is very considerate. She has saved me the trouble. You cannot see. If I do not remove it myself, am I supposed to wear it all night? I answered without much good humor and continued taking down the crown. He said nothing more. Come sit beside me. It is true that I cannot see. You may handle everything that follows on your own. What? I set the crown down heavily on the small table beside the bed. The pearls and jade ornaments chimed against one another. What does my wife think I mean? He asked, calmly. Changing clothes, washing, and resting. Since I cannot see, naturally I cannot help you. Or did my wife imagine something else? He had rendered me speechless. You did that on purpose. Yes, he admitted without shame. Would my wife care to guess which part was deliberate? I glared at him for a long moment before remembering that he could not see it. He leaned slightly toward me. As for other matters, sight is not always necessary. My wife need not conserve my strength on my behalf. He felt for my sleeve, then lightly hooked his fingers around my wrist. My heart began to pound. My thoughts tangled, and I pulled back instinctively. Are you afraid of me? He stopped, his voice lowered. Or do you despise me? I was neither afraid of him nor disgusted by him. Everything had simply happened too quickly, and I was not ready. More than that, I had only just returned from a death in childbirth. Intimacy still awakened fear in me. I forced myself to speak and change the subject. You have never seen me. Are you not afraid that I might be ugly and taking advantage of you? He fell silent. After a long while, he said quietly, I have seen you. I stared at his sightless eyes. He was truly blind. I had never met him. How could he have seen me? You have seen me? When? His eyelashes trembled, but he refused to explain. It is late. Rest, my wife. In the end, Shen Yi did not touch me. After I fell asleep, he sat alone at the table and drank through the entire night. When I woke the next morning, daylight already filled the room. Shen Yi had collapsed over the table, his long fingers still wrapped around the wine jar. His brows were faintly drawn together, and he was deeply unconscious from drink. I had only just helped him onto the bed when the senior maid from my mother-in-law's courtyard arrived. She said I was expected in the front hall to offer tea and greet the elders. What kind of elder was she to me? After living once before, I knew exactly what sort of woman she was. In my previous life, she had wished every day that Shen Yi would die somewhere in Jiangnan, so Shen Zhao could inherit the title openly and without dispute. Now that I had become Shen Yi's wife, she naturally hated me along with him. Moreover, because I had refused to marry Shen Zhao, he had lost face and been punished by the crown prince. She would certainly count that debt against me as well. As expected, the moment I entered, she spoke in a mocking tone. The young madam certainly carries herself grandly. On the first morning of marriage, she makes her elders wait. If word spreads, people might think our Marcus household has no rules. Then she pretended to be magnanimous and signaled for a maid to bring the tea. Forget it, you are newly married. I shall not argue over such a small matter. Steam rolled from the thin porcelain cup. The instant my fingers touched it, the heat burned me and I drew back. It is too hot, bring another cup. How insolent. My mother-in-law struck the table and shot to her feet. An elder gives you tea, and you dare pick and choose. She raised her hand to slap me. A sharp sound rang through the hall, but the blow did not land on my face. Shen Zhao had appeared from nowhere and stepped in front of me. He took the slap in my place. A bright red handprint quickly appeared on his cheek. It took his mother a long moment to recover. Zhao, have you gone mad? Shen Zhao stood between us. You are not allowed to hit her. Not allowed? His mother trembled with fury. She shows disrespect to her mother-in-law, and I am not permitted to discipline her. Someone, restrain her. Several stout servants rushed forward. I hear someone here wishes to lay hands on what belongs to me. Shen Yi's unhurried voice came from the doorway. His hair was only loosely tied and the smell of wine still clung to his robes. The two servants holding my arms saw him and released me at once, stepping back despite themselves. Madam Shen wishes to drink tea? He came to my side with a smile. The attendant behind him immediately understood. He took the tea tray, poured another cup of scalding tea, and presented it to my mother-in-law. Madam, please drink. Her expression changed. What is the meaning of this? Nothing at all. Shen Yi continued smiling. I merely wish to offer Madam a cup of tea to cool her temper. You unfilial son, she shouted. How dare you speak to me in such a manner? You will not drink. Shen Yi gave another soft laugh. Then I shall have someone help Madam drink it. Her face turned white. It appeared that in my previous life she had dominated the Marquis household only because Shen Yi had been far away in Jiangnan and no one remained to restrain her. The rumors about Shen Yi were also true. He was solitary, gloomy, and ruthless. Once his temper turned, even the old Marquis could do nothing with him. The air froze. Then Shen Zhao suddenly took the cup of hot tea and drained it in one swallow. Are you satisfied? He slammed the cup onto the table and looked defiantly at Shen Yi. Shen Yi slowly turned toward me instead. Is my wife satisfied? Let us go. I had no wish to watch the farce continue. I took his hand and pulled him outside. Behind us, my mother-in-law continued cursing. How long do you think you can remain arrogant? With that ruined body of yours, living on wine every day, how many days can you last? Once you can no longer hold on, I would like to see whose arms she crawls into then. I only wanted to take Shen Yi away as quickly as possible. But Shen Zhao followed and caught my sleeve. Rulan, I am sorry. My mother was not deliberately targeting you. She was only what? Shen Yi interrupted with open mockery. One moment you protect this person, the next you defend that one. Swaying between both sides, trying to please everyone. Second brother, your sincerity is remarkably cheap. Shen Zhao ignored him and stared only at me. His eyes were rimmed with red. Rulan, do you truly no longer like me? The wind swept through the courtyard. A tear still marked his face, and he looked so wretched that he no longer resembled a young lord of a noble house. In my previous life, the sight would have broken my heart. Now, it only irritated me. Second brother, watch your words, Shen Yi said, displeasure entering his voice. Your sister-in-law and I are newly married. If you continue speaking nonsense, I do not mind having you confined again. Newly married. Those two words seemed to stab straight into Shen Zhao's heart. He lashed out without restraint. Do not imagine I do not know. You are merely a consumptive invalid with a short life. He looked at me. Rulan, would you truly rather become a living widow after following him than turn back to me? The words were vicious. The fingers Shen Yi held in my palm tightened slightly. What living widow? I retorted at once. We were very well last night. Shen Zhao tried to speak again, but Shen Yi had no interest in continuing the argument. He tugged lightly at my sleeve and said in a gentler voice, My wife, the wind is strong, take me home. Shen Yi lived in Wild Goose Rest Pavilion, at the coldest and most remote corner of the Markham Manor beside a waterside terrace. The location was isolated, but the buildings were constructed on an unusually grand scale. His grandfather had personally chosen and named the residence when he was alive. In my previous life, after Shen Yi left for Jiangnan, the pavilion had been abandoned and few people ever entered it. I had never had a good sense of direction, and the memories belonged to another lifetime. After walking for some time, my steps gradually slowed. Beyond a crescent-shaped archway, I stopped and frowned at the several long corridors ahead. East, the man beside me said, at exactly the right moment. I followed his direction with some doubt. Before long, the familiar bamboo grove outside Wild Goose Rest Pavilion appeared. After another stretch, however, the pebble path divided in two. The left path is shorter, he said. I looked at him. Can you not see? I cannot see, but I am not stupid. He tilted his head with a half smile. I know every road in this manor with my eyes closed. But if my wife finds me burdensome, I can walk by myself. His voice became perfectly innocent. What if I accidentally fall into the lake, or trip over some blind stone and break my leg? What would we do then? His solemn nonsense made me laugh. I had no choice but to keep holding his hand and lead him forward. Yet the farther we went, the more unfamiliar the path became. This is wrong. This is not the road back to Wild Goose Rest Pavilion. I stopped again. Shenyi, are you deliberately leading me in circles? Yes. He admitted it without the slightest embarrassment. It is rare for my wife to take my hand of her own accord. Naturally, I wished to walk a little longer. I had met shameless men before, but never one who could be shameless with such righteous confidence. We are nearly there, he added, becoming more serious. There are several stone steps ahead. Few people use them, so moss grows there. I cannot see. If I slip, I fear I will have to trouble my wife to care for me. I looked ahead and indeed saw a flight of stone steps covered by a thin layer of damp green moss. I tightened my grip and carefully led him upward. He walked as steadily as though the path were flat. I was the one whose foot slipped. Careful. One of his arms closed firmly around my waist. I clutched his arm, too shaken to be angry, and let him guide me up the remaining steps. When we crossed the final step, the view opened at once. A quiet courtyard stood beside the water, its curved roof rising above shifting bamboo shadows. Wild Goose Rest Pavilion. I secretly exhaled and moved away from him, but he continued holding my hand. What did my wife call me in the bamboo grove just now? What do you mean? I asked blankly. He laughed softly. That was the first time you called me by name. Say it again. Remembering that he might not have many years left, I decided not to be overly reserved. Shenyi. I said it clearly. He seemed not to have expected me to comply so readily. He was silent for a long time before answering with a quiet sound of acknowledgement. Then he reached out and drew me into his arms. I struggled lightly. Let go. All right, he answered quickly, but released me very slowly. That day, I finally understood his true position in the household. On the surface, no one dared contradict him. Even his stepmother feared him. Yet there was not a trace of familial warmth around him. One after another, his relatives cursed him to die early directly to his face. Who knew how many schemes they hid behind his back? In my previous life, he had already left the capital for Jiangnan at this point. This time, I could not allow my presence to keep him trapped in this suffocating place, wasting what might be the final years of his life. If his heart remained burdened, perhaps he would not even live the 7 years he had survived before. Shenyi, would you like to leave the manor and travel somewhere else? I asked carefully. Perhaps the northwest, where you lived as a child. Or you could come with me to my old home in the south. The climate there is like spring through all 4 seasons, and the winters are far more comfortable than those in the capital. Jiangnan would also be possible. The smile on his face faded slightly. Does my wife have a guilty conscience? Do you wish to flee far away from second brother? Do not imagine foolish things. I am serious. I can see what everyone in this household wants. Your health is poor. Rather than remain here dealing with those petty ghosts, would it not be better to find somewhere peaceful? He raised an eyebrow. Then does my wife regret marrying a sick man like me? I became anxious and angrily shook off his hand. I am concerned for you. If you do not understand, then forget it. He was silent for a moment, then said mysteriously, until the demon in the heart is removed, one cannot travel even half a step. A sickness of the heart requires medicine for the heart. What does that mean? He had completely confused me. He smiled. There is no hurry. We will leave after the medicine arrives. He always spoke that way, half revealed and half concealed. I thought of how he had grown up watching his stepmother's expression. How many matters he must have buried in his heart, and did not press him. After that day, however, the distance between us diminished greatly. Shenyi was the sort of man who took an inch and demanded a mile. By day he remained the frail eldest young master who seldom left his courtyard. At night, he behaved like a fox spirit who had cultivated for 1,000 years, always finding some excuse to cling to me. But my previous death in childbirth still haunted me, and I had not completely opened my heart to him. Whenever I sensed that his desire had become serious, I instinctively withdrew. He always noticed. He would curse me softly for having no conscience, then turn away and calm himself. Sometimes he pretended to be offended. Does my wife still think of my younger brother? Is that why you cannot bear to let me touch you? I am simply not ready. Guilty and flustered, I threw a pillow at him. If you speak nonsense again, go sleep in the outer room. He caught the pillow with a laugh. That will not do. My body is delicate and weak. If no one holds me at night, I may freeze to death. Every word was nonsense. Yet, day after day, that sort of life gave me a peace I had not felt for a very long time. 2 months passed. Then, just as in my previous life, war news arrived from the border. The difference was that before, Shen Zhao had accepted the command only at the last moment because he had no choice. Before leaving, he had held me close, reluctant to part. The warm wind and floating clouds had seemed pale beside the depth of his affection. None of that had prevented him from returning in triumph with Song Jiwei cherished above everyone else. This time, he volunteered for the campaign and left the capital, without once looking back. With Shen Zhao no longer appearing before me, my days became even more peaceful. My mother-in-law, however, could not accept it. No one understood a son better than his mother. She decided that I had broken Shen Zhao's heart so completely that he had chosen to go to a place where death waited on every side. From then on, she disliked me even more. Every few days, she attempted to assert herself as mistress of the household and summon me to learn the rules. Her orders never made it through the gates of Wild Goose Rest Pavilion. Then misfortune befell the two senior maids who served her, and most enjoyed bullying others under the strength of her authority. One slipped into the lotus pond in the middle of the night. By the time she was pulled out, she had nearly frozen to death. The other suddenly lost her voice for reasons no one could explain. No matter how many physicians were called, she could not speak a complete sentence. Everyone in the Marquis household became as quiet as cicadas in winter. My mother-in-law was finally intimidated by Shen Yi's silent and sinister methods. She no longer dared send people to Wild Goose Rest Pavilion to trouble me. All she could do was pray every day that Shen Yi would die soon. But his complexion had recently begun to improve, and he drank far less than before. Only then did I learn that whenever his illness flared, he had relied on wine mixed with red crow powder to endure it. After using it for so long, he had naturally become dependent on both. Now he only said that one embrace from me was enough. Then he would force himself through the pain without the wine. One day he reclined lazily on a cushioned couch, playing with my hand in his. Their words last time reminded me of something. If I truly close my eyes and leave this world one day, my wife will be left alone. Would you not be at the mercy of everyone in this household? He spoke lightly, but my heart stirred. Everyone said his illness was incurable. Merely drinking less could not be enough. His symptoms were extraordinarily strange. On ordinary days, he appeared almost no different from a healthy man. Yet around the middle of each month, or whenever rain continued for several nights, every bone and joint seemed plunged into ice. The pain became unbearable. Each attack weakened his body further. In my previous life, his rapid decline in Jiangnan had probably been worsened by the humid climate. I could not resist asking, "Where did your illness truly come from?" Shen Yi's expression darkened. "My mother died giving birth to me." That same day, a large fire broke out in the residence and several servants died. After I turned 5, I often suffered fevers, chills, and pain in my bones. No medicine helped. They became even more certain that I had brought death to others and was receiving retribution. Do you believe that too? Perhaps. He leaned back against the cushion. His long lashes lowered. When I was a child, I thought that if I worked hard enough and did everything better than anyone else, people would eventually look at me differently. They would stop calling me a monster who killed his mother and brought disaster to his kin. Later, I truly achieved everything they demanded, and then I lost my sight. If that is not retribution, what is? He spoke with careless calm, yet a strange suspicion rose in me. Could a weakness from birth truly behave like this? If not, who could have harmed him year after year inside a place as guarded as Wild Goose Rest Pavilion? Autumn gradually arrived, and a chill entered the wind of the capital. Shen Zhao returned on the Double Ninth Festival exactly as he had in my previous life, and, exactly as before, he brought home his life-saving benefactor, Song Jiwei. I hear second brother brought home a beauty. Shall we go and look? Shen Yi rested his chin on one hand and deliberately leaned close as he asked. I was painting. The brushstroke that should have flowed smoothly paused. No. He wrapped his arms around me from behind. What is wrong? Are you afraid to go, or are you jealous? I put down the brush helplessly. What would I be jealous of? At most, the sight would offend my eyes. Then let us go. Without another word, he took my hand and pulled me to my feet. They have already arrived. As his elder brother and sister-in-law, we should at least join the welcome. The front hall was full of noise and celebration. Shen Zhao had not even removed his armor. He was excitedly describing how he had been ambushed on the road back to the capital and how the woman beside him had saved him. Song Jiwei stood near him, wrapped in his broad cloak. Her face held the pallor of recent illness, but her eyes were bright and watery, giving her the innocent appearance of someone untouched by worldly affairs. My mother-in-law sat in the place of honor with a complicated expression. After all, the girl's background was unclear. Shen Zhao had not yet married, and bringing an unrelated young woman openly into the household could damage his reputation. Yet she was also his savior, so his mother could only preserve a reluctant show of courtesy. Her expression was exactly the same as in my previous life. Then, Shen Zhao had created such a fierce commotion that he nearly broke with the family on the spot, forcing everyone in the household to respect Song Zhiwei. I wondered how matters would be arranged this time. Shen Yi entered holding my hand. Second brother, the journey must have been difficult. The hall fell briefly silent. Everyone in the residence knew that those of us from Wild Goose Rest Pavilion did not associate with them. Even during the Mid-Autumn Festival a few days earlier, each side had celebrated separately. No one had expected us to appear at this welcome feast. The moment Shen Zhao saw me, his expression became unnatural. The hand that had been resting on Song Jiwei's shoulder immediately dropped. I watched that small movement with cold amusement. In my previous life, when he saw me his lawful wife, he had behaved with complete ease. He had never thought he needed to keep his distance from Song Jiwei. Now, he acted as though he feared I might misunderstand. Song Jiwei noticed his reaction. The smile on her face faded slightly. Without drawing attention, she glanced at me, then shyly tugged at the corner of Shen Zhao's robe. Brother Zhao, who are they? My elder brother. Shen Zhao's expression was complicated. After a long pause, he added stiffly, and this is my elder sister-in-law. Shen Yi bent toward my ear and asked mischievously, my wife, I cannot see. Is this young lady truly very beautiful? I pinched his palm hard. She is ordinary. He gave a low laugh, apparently satisfied. Song Jiwei stepped forward and smiled brightly. Elder sister-in-law is truly beautiful. How fitting. In my previous life she had said, Madam is truly beautiful. Now the moment the words, elder sister-in-law left her mouth, even the stern old marquis lowered his face and frowned. Shen Yi gave a cold laugh. Are you qualified to address her as elder sister-in-law? Someone, throw this woman who does not understand propriety out. Song Jiwei recoiled beside Shen Zhao, frightened nearly to tears. Brother Zhao, did I say something wrong? Shen Zhao's expression changed, but he still spoke for her. Elder brother, she has only just arrived in the capital and does not know our customs. It was an innocent mistake. Why must you go so far? You misunderstand, Shen Yi said. It is not because she spoke incorrectly. My wife said that looking at her offended her eyes. I am merely following my wife's wishes so that she will not be unhappy. I stared at him. What was wrong with this man? He had openly placed all the blame on me. Song Jiwei appeared even more pitiful. Her body swayed as though she might collapse. Brother Zhao, I have never met this lady, nor have I offended her. Why would she? But Shen Zhao seemed not to hear her at all. He abruptly turned to me and hurried to explain. Is that true? Rulan, do not misunderstand. There is absolutely nothing between Jiwei and me. How is this so different from the previous life? Then I had merely asked why he spent every day at Song Jiwei's side, and he had answered with open impatience. Jiwei and I have already shared the intimacy of husband and wife. How long will you continue making trouble? Now I had nothing to do with him, yet he rushed to explain himself. What are you doing, elder sister-in-law? Song Jiwei's eyes reddened. This is all my fault. I said from the beginning that I should not come. She turned away and covered her lips, coughing softly. The old Markov finally spoke in a deep voice. Enough. Since Zhao has not behaved improperly toward this young lady, I can be at ease. You saved the life of a son of the Shen family. Remain here and recover for a time. Once your health improves, you may ask for any reasonable reward. But if you hope to enter the Shen family through marriage, that is impossible. I lowered my eyes, thoughts turning rapidly. In my previous life, Shen Zhao had shaken the entire capital for Song Jiwei. He claimed they had already been physically intimate and that he could never betray her. Only then had the Marquis household been forced to grant her a place. Yet now, he had personally denied any romantic involvement. For a time I could not understand it. Without me trapped between them, why had he suddenly become a man of restraint? The old priest had told me to repay hatred with hatred and grievance with grievance. But in this life, I had married Shen Yi. Whatever happened between Song Jiwei and Shen Zhao, however deep their affection, what did it have to do with me? They had not yet harmed me. No matter how fiercely hatred gnawed at my heart. What standing did I have to hate them now? Where was my revenge supposed to begin? My chest tightened. I gripped Shen Yi's hand to steady myself. Song Jiwei wiped her tears and stepped forward. Facing the old Marquis, she spoke clearly. Lord Marquis is too kind. I saved Brother Zhao by instinct alone and never intended to demand repayment. I shamelessly followed him here only because I remain ill. Once I recover, I will naturally leave. Her words were decisive and unyielding, carrying the straightforward spirit of a woman from the martial world. The old Marquis's opinion of her immediately improved. Shen Zhao also looked at her with admiration. What shamelessness! I was the one who insisted on bringing you back. Song Jiwei turned and smiled at him. The two looked entirely in harmony. At my side, Shen Yi sighed at great length. My wife, have you seen? Second brother already has someone in his heart. You should stop clinging to the past. I did not understand what nonsense he was speaking. When have I clung to the past? He gave me no opportunity to answer. As soon as he finished, he pulled me outside. Shen Zhao, however, seemed suddenly enlightened, as though he had discovered some earth-shaking secret. He immediately followed. Rulan, I knew it. You have never truly let me go. That is right, Shen Yi continued, adding fuel to the fire. Since you left, she has lost her appetite for tea and food. Worry has consumed her. I saw it and suffered with her. I even thought it might be better to bring the two of you together again. But now you have personally brought another woman into the household. From this day onward, she can only be your elder sister-in-law. Shen Zhao froze as though struck by lightning. But I was even more astonished than he was. What did he mean I could neither eat nor drink? What did he mean he had suffered to see it? What did he mean he wanted to reunite us? He did not even have eyes with which to see anything. Come, my wife. We should return and deepen the affection between husband and wife. Without another word, Shen Yi pulled me back to Wild Goose Rest Pavilion. I held my anger through the entire walk. The instant we entered, I threw off his hand. Shen Yi, was that amusing? He did not become angry. Instead, he slowly rolled up his left sleeve and extended his wrist toward me. It is not quite so amusing now. His expression was aggrieved. My wife says she no longer cares for second brother, but the moment you saw him bring someone home, you squeezed so hard that your nails cut me. It hurts. I lowered my eyes. Several deep crescent marks marred the pale skin of his wrist. 2 had broken the skin and were beaded with blood. Sit still, do not move. I sighed and went inside for this medicine box. Before I could get far, he pulled me back into his arms. This small pain is nothing compared with the pain in my heart. I saw that my wife cared so much, so I deliberately said a few things to provoke him. I struggled but could not escape, so I let him hold me. First, I have no lingering feelings for him. Second, was that merely provoking him? What if he believes you and comes here every day to bother me? Shen Yi laughed softly. Would that not be even better? I have been worrying that I lacked an excuse to deal with him. He was truly imagining too much. In my previous life, Shen Zhao had been my husband, yet his eyes had held only Song Jue. This time, with no wife standing between them, the two should have been inseparable. How could he have time to trouble me? I fear you will be disappointed, I said self-mockingly. He already has a beauty in his arms. Why would he care about the woman who betrayed him? Shen Yi scoffed. What one cannot obtain is always best. Besides, is the beauty in his heart not you? The more he spoke, the angrier I became. You still dare say that? Before the entire household, you made a joke of my reputation. By tomorrow, all of the capital will say that I am fickle, and still cannot forget Shen Zhao. What need have you for reputation? He remained completely unconcerned. I do not care, but I care. I turned away in anger. I am wholly devoted to you. And you? Wholly devoted. Shen Yi lowered his head and laughed softly. Truly wholly devoted, without any other secret intentions? What secret intentions could I have? My greatest secret was that I had failed to refuse the old priest in time. For no reason I understood, I had been sent back to live again, and forced to enter the Shen household a second time, spending each day beside a blind man whose every sentence carried hidden barbs. I escaped his embrace, sat on the edge of the bed, turned my back, and refused to speak to him again. But Shen Yi had been right about one thing. What one could not obtain was always best. Shen Zhao truly believed his absurd story. Every few days, he found an excuse to visit Wild Goose Rest Pavilion, to ask after us, deliver some gift, or claim he had happened to pass nearby. Every time he saw me, his eyes were frighteningly red. Again and again, he explained that nothing existed between him and Song Jue. Once, I had loved only him. He had relied on that certainty, and never considered that my heart, too, was made of flesh and blood. Now that I no longer wanted him, he could not sleep. Anxiety burned him from within, and all he wished was to seize me back. Song Jue watched him lose himself day after day, and soon understood who truly stood in her way. Not long afterward, just as in my previous life, she acted against me. A fine rain drifted over the manor. Shen Yi had gone to the Eastern Palace on business. Several newly transplanted clusters of mottled bamboo looked most beautiful after rain, so I left my attendants behind and walked alone toward the grove beneath an umbrella. Unexpectedly, I encountered Shen Zhao staggering among the bamboo, reeking of wine. The instant he saw me, his eyes turned red. Without regard for anything, he rushed forward and seized my sleeve. Rulan, hold me, please hold me. Disgust surged through me. I slapped him and ordered him to observe propriety, but he behaved like a madman. Instead of retreating, he stepped closer and caught me in a tight embrace. We struggled. Heat radiated from his body through our clothes. His breathing was as heavy. His face flushed unnaturally. Then a cry of shock sounded nearby. Brother Zhao. Song Jiwei stood at the far end of the bamboo grove. 2 older servants and several maids followed behind her. Her face was white, as though she had witnessed something horrifying. How could you do this? The moment she cried out, the normally deserted grove erupted into commotion. Servants appeared from every direction, clearly prepared in advance. Ordinarily, very few people came near this bamboo grove besides those from Wild Goose Rest Pavilion. On a rainy day, there should have been no one at all. At last, even the old market and my mother-in-law were alarmed and hurried over with their attendants. The moment my mother-in-law saw us, her expression changed. She raised her hand and struck me across the face. "You shameless temptress, how dare you seduce my son?" The blow turned my head aside and my ear rang. Before I could speak, Song Jiwei dropped to her knees. "Madam, please calm yourself. Brother Zhao only lost control because he was drunk." "Drunk?" My mother-in-law seized upon the word. "Zhao may be drunk, but this wretched woman is sober. A married woman tangling with her husband's younger brother in broad daylight, has she no shame?" Song Jiwei added softly. "They did once have a marriage understanding. Meeting again, perhaps they could not restrain old feelings. It is understandable. Could not restrain old feelings." The old marquis frowned and walked toward me. "Shurulan, you and Zhao were once a natural pair. You were the one who changed your mind, wavering between the two Shen brothers and insisting on marrying Yi instead. Out of respect for the Shu family and His Majesty, I allowed it. But now you are already Yi's wife. Why must you still provoke Zhao? Lord Marquis, please do not be angry," Song Jiwei immediately interrupted. "Jiwei has not been here long, but I can see that the eldest young madam and eldest young master share deep affection. There must be some misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" My mother-in-law laughed coldly. "Everyone in this household knows the condition of Yi's body. This woman clearly could not endure loneliness and took the initiative to seduce Zhao." I stared at her, rage surging within me. How dared she? How dared she publicly humiliate Shen Yi in such a way? I could no longer endure it. What kind of man my husband is does not fall to outsiders to discuss. Before I finished, Shen Zhao rushed toward me again, calling my name in broken fragments. "Rulan! Rulan, I want you." I stepped back. His legs gave way and he collapsed. Song Jiwei immediately threw herself beside him and caught his wrist. "Brother Zhao, are you all right?" A moment later, her expression abruptly changed. Crimson thread lure. She felt his pulse and turned deathly pale. I knew it. Only days ago, Brother Zhao told me that the eldest young madam is now married to the eldest young master and is therefore his elder sister-in-law. He said he could only respect her. How could he suddenly behave like this? Could Brother Zhao have drugged himself? The bamboo grove erupted again. Every gaze turned toward me. I glanced at Shen Zhao and understood. He had indeed been drugged. No wonder he had lost all reason. Song Jiwei's ability to invert black and white was even more revolting than in my previous life. I stepped toward her. "Miss Song, do you know the punishment for falsely accusing County Lady Amping? Since you are so skilled at solving crimes, perhaps you should come with me to the palace and ask the nobles there to judge fairly." County Lady Amping. Fear flickered in her eyes, but she bit her lip and maintained a righteous expression. "Jiwei only speaks the truth. Even before His Majesty, I would say the same. So many people witnessed what happened today. How could I be framing you? You still have the face to take this before His Majesty," my mother-in-law shouted. "Seize this shameless woman and take her to the ancestral hall. When Shen Yi returns, I will ask whether he still wishes to recognize such an unfaithful wife." "Whether I recognize my wife? When did that become yours to decide?" A cold voice sounded through the curtain of rain. Shen Yi approached one measured step at a time beneath a green bamboo umbrella. "My wife, when you came out to admire the bamboo, why did you not ask me to hold the umbrella for you?" At his words, someone stepped forward and placed a fox fur cloak over my shoulders, covering my disordered, rain-soaked clothing. Only then did I look around and realize that Imperial guards had surrounded the bamboo grove without anyone noticing. The old Marquis's face darkened. He opened his mouth, then remained silent. "Shen Yi, you bring soldiers to surround the manor. Are you trying to rebel?" Shen Yi smiled faintly. "Yes." "Do you object?" Her face turned livid. "My lord, will you simply allow him to act without law or restraint?" "Madam Shen," Shen Yi interrupted. "Instead of worrying whether I intend rebellion, you should worry about second brother." He raised one hand. "Shen Zhao assaulted County Lady Amping. Take him away." My mother-in-law hurried forward and shielded Shen Zhao behind her. Shen Yi Jiwei saw with her own eyes that Xu Rulan seduced Zhao first. "Do not reverse truth and falsehood," Shen Yi scoffed. "The word of a woman of unknown origin is fit to serve as evidence." My mother-in-law's face whitened. In desperation, she seized upon an idea. "Who says her origin is unknown?" "She is the daughter-in-law I have chosen, the future second madam of the Shen family. Why would her word be untrustworthy?" Joy flashed in Song Jiwei's eyes, but she remained kneeling in the mud, weak and pitiful. "Eldest young master, please judge fairly." Jiwei saw everything and would never dare speak falsely. "Saw everything?" Shen Yi slowly stepped closer. Tell me, which of your eyes saw it? Her voice dropped. Both eyes, both eyes. Shen Yi laughed softly. Very good. He turned back toward me, his voice gentle. My wife, do you now know where to begin? I stared at him in disbelief. How did he know what I had been thinking? Could he also have returned from another life? When I did not answer, he spoke more softly. Then let us begin with the eyes. Shall we? He drew a dagger from his sleeve and held it out. She says both her eyes witnessed it. While I cannot see with even one, that makes me very unhappy. A guard came forward, accepted the dagger, and approached Song Jiwei. Only then did she truly become afraid. She scrambled backward. Do not come closer. Lord Marquis, madam, save me. The old Marquis finally changed expression. Your father. Shen Yi stood in the rain beneath his umbrella. Did today's disgrace not become a scandal only because she claimed to have seen it? If she had seen nothing, naturally there would be no scandal. The old Marquis valued face above all else. Hearing those words, he did not speak again. Song Jiwei collapsed into the muddy water. Shen Yi tilted his head. By the way, who placed the drug in second brother's wine? Song Jiwei shook her head desperately. I do not know. Shen Yi sighed. My wife said your watery eyes were beautiful. If you tell the truth, I will spare them. Song Jiwei finally broke. It was me, I did it. I was jealous of her. It was all me. Please do not take my eyes. I would rather die. Die? Shen Yi shook his head. Would that not be too easy? He signaled, and the guards forced her down into the mud. The dagger touched her eyelid and blood appeared. Shen Yi drew me into his arms and covered my eyes with one hand. Do not look. Pressed against his chest. I suddenly remembered the night I had died in my previous life. The rain had sounded the same. Fear, blood, and broken cries had filled the room, so the sickness of the heart Shen Yi had spoken of had never been his. It was mine. I stepped back and removed his hand from my eyes. My wife, he said softly, believing I had become merciful. I looked at Song Jiwei, still held in the mud, blood marking her face as she trembled in terror. My stomach turned, but my voice remained cold. End it. Did you not say that sickness of the heart requires medicine for the heart? I want to see, the debt answered. Shen Yi was silent for a moment, then laughed helplessly. My wife's thoughts are still not quite cruel enough. He nodded to the guard obeyed. Song Jiwei's cries stopped at once, and she lay motionless as the rain spread the blood into the muddy water. Shen Zhao still sat collapsed on the ground, his mind clouded by the drug. When he saw Song Jiwei lying motionless, he suddenly pushed away the servant supporting him and stumbled toward her. He held her tightly. Rulan, you only fainted from the pain. The physician is coming. Song Jiwei no longer breathed. My mother-in-law fainted from fright and was carried away. The old Marquis stared at the body for a moment, gave a cold snort, and turned away. After 2 steps, he stopped. Take the second young master away. Attendants rushed forward and dragged Shen Zhao from the grove, hurrying as though afraid another moment might leave a second body behind. I remained frozen. Others would assume that the drug had confused Shen Zhao's mind. But I knew those were the same words he had spoken when I died from blood loss in my previous life. I stared after him, unable to decide whether it was coincidence. A hand gently squeezed my fingertips and drew me away from the nightmare. Come. Shen Yi placed an arm around my shoulders and helped me back to Wild Goose Rest Pavilion. The instant the door closed, the arm around me suddenly lost strength. His body began to slide toward the floor. Shen Yi, I caught him and only then saw how pale his face was. His whole body trembled and cold sweat stood on his forehead. I remembered that rainy days always triggered his illness. He had stood in the cold rain for so long. The chill must already have entered his bones. I could not imagine how much pain he was enduring. Do not make a commotion. He gripped my wrist, his voice broken. Help me to the bed. Tell no one. I used all my strength to support him and covered him with layer after layer of thick quilts. After a long time, the violent trembling eased slightly. Soon, he sank into an uneasy unconsciousness. I remained at the bedside holding his ice-cold hand. At times he drifted into delirium. At others, pain dragged him awake. Countless famous physicians had examined him over the years. If this were truly only a congenital weakness, how could none of them explain it? If it were an incurable disease, why did it become so much worse only on damp and rainy days? But if it were poison, what poison could escape a man whose other senses were so keen? I leaned beside the bed, thoughts churning. From the waterside terrace beyond the door came wave after wave of faint fragrance, from the water plants called water-reflecting coldflower. Their long leaves were dark green, and they bore tiny purple blossoms no larger than a fingernail. They were now in full bloom, forming one of the loveliest sights in Wild Goose Rest Pavilion. In my previous life, Shen Yi had already gone to Jiangnan before I entered the household. Wild Goose Rest Pavilion had stood empty for years. Even the waterside terrace had been thoroughly cleared. Only a few withered lotus stalks remained. Then where had all these water-reflecting cold flowers gone? The plant was extremely hardy. Unless someone deliberately removed it, it should only spread farther. It could not disappear without reason. I looked through the window at the entire pond of purple blossoms and felt cold along my spine. Could Shen Yi's strange illness be connected to them? I spent the entire night searching every medical classic and miscellaneous record I could find in Wild Goose Rest Pavilion. Near dawn, I finally discovered a passage. The flower itself was not poisonous and possessed a cold nature, but its fragrance conflicted with the medicinal properties of seven-leaf lotus. If wine acted as a catalyst, prolonged exposure would eat into the marrow. During damp, rainy weather, the residual poison would attack the heart and organs more fiercely. In mild cases, the joints and bones would ache. In severe cases, the organs and foundation of health would be damaged. I hurriedly examined Shen Yi's daily prescription. It contained seven-leaf lotus. He drank that medicine every day without fail, while water-reflecting coldflower grew beside the waterside terrace directly before his residence. He saw it whenever the windows opened and passed it whenever he stepped outside. Day after day, year after year, it had turned him into the ruined man who could not withstand rainy weather. What a vicious scheme! I closed the book. A suspicion had already taken shape in my mind. Then noise broke out in the courtyard. "Second young master, you cannot enter. Get out of my way." She's voice carried through the door. I gently tightened my hold on Shen Yi's hand. He had finally fallen into a somewhat peaceful sleep. His brows remained faintly furrowed, his breathing shallow but even. A trace of color had returned to his face. He had survived this attack. Afraid that Shen Zhao would wake him, and equally afraid that news of his unconsciousness might spread. I drew the bed curtains tightly shut, put on another robe, and walked outside as though I had only just risen. In a single night, Shen Zhao seemed to have had all life drained from him. His face was gray, his eyes sunken, and his posture ruined. He no longer resembled a noble young master. When he saw me, he became quiet. He walked forward blankly and lifted a hand as though to touch my face. I stepped back. "Rulan." His hands stiffened in the air. His voice was hoarse. "It is truly you. You are truly here." He sounded like a man who had awakened after escaping a catastrophe. To test my suspicion, I deliberately looked confused. "What is second young master saying? If I were not here, where should I be?" "Yes, you have been here all along." He lowered his eyes. In a single night, he had become someone else, not merely a young man suddenly abandoned by the woman he loved. He looked at me for a long time, then begged in a low voice, "Rulan, I was wrong. Come back. Let us begin again." So it was true. He remembered. Perhaps the memories returned through yesterday's drunken haze, or perhaps they awakened when he saw Song Jiwei die. Whatever the cause, he now possessed the same memories of our previous life that I did. A distorted pleasure rose within me. He remembered? Good. Only now had my debt found its rightful debtor. He would have to live carrying those memories, unable to know peace by day or night. Begin again? I laughed softly. Your elder brother and I are harmonious husband and wife. We respect one another as honored guests. Where does second young master find such confidence? I wronged you. He raised his face and forced back his tears. You were right not to choose me. But my elder brother, before he could say more about Shen Yi appeared at the doorway, supporting himself against the frame. His white inner robe clung to his body in the wind, emphasizing how frail he looked. My expression changed. I hurried to remove my cloak and drape it around his shoulders. Why did you come outside? I scolded under my breath, making no effort to hide my concern. He gently patted the back of my hand. It is nothing. It was too noisy outside. I came to see. He turned slowly toward Shen Zhao. Yesterday, second brother used drunkenness as an excuse to assault his elder sister-in-law. Today at dawn, you come to your elder brother's courtyard to steal his wife. Do you believe that I, as her husband, cannot protect her? That I must allow others to enter and trample over her at will? His tone was light, but I heard the meaning beneath it. Was Shen Zhao not precisely the husband who had failed to protect his wife and child in our previous life, allowing others to enter and destroy them? I tightened my hold on Shen Yi's hand and deliberately leaned closer. What nonsense! How could a husband fail to protect his own wife? Shen Zhao's face slowly turned ashen. He stared at our interlocked hands and laughed bleakly. Yesterday I insulted my elder sister-in-law. I deserve death. I came especially to ask punishment. Why speak so severely? Shen Yi's voice remained mild, but each word cut without showing blood. There is always someone willing to bear the consequences of your momentary foolishness. Yesterday, Miss Song, your life-saving benefactor, died because of you. Second brother merely lost virtue while drunk and was deceived by another. Go back and clear your mind. Continue being the honored second young master of the Marquess household. Shen Zhao stood blankly for a very long time. At last, he murmured, I created my own evil. I cannot escape it. He turned and walked away like a lost soul. After only a few steps, he swayed and coughed up blood, then collapsed forward. Second young master is coughing blood. Should we summon a physician? A servant asked in alarm. Shen Yi frowned, stepped forward, and felt his pulse. Merely anger attacking the heart. He will not die yet. Carry him back. The guards moved to lift him. Wait, I called them back, ran to the waterside terrace, and gathered a bundle of water-reflecting cold flowers. I placed the blossoms across Shenjiao's chest. Since second young master is ill, naturally he should be taken to madam. These flowers are blooming well. Bring them too. Shenjiao was carried away, but his health declined day by day. At first he only coughed and occasionally brought up blood. Later, even his mind became confused. Because of him, more than half of my mother-in-law's hair turned white. I heard that when she first saw Shenjiao carried back with a bundle of blooming water-reflecting cold flowers on his chest, her face changed at once. She was so frightened that she dropped her teacup and ordered the flowers thrown far away. She assumed Shenjiao's condition meant that Shen Yi had discovered her scheme and had deliberately sent both the flowers and her son back as a warning. From that day onward, she lived in constant fear. She wished she could tie her youngest son, who had only just turned 14, to her waist and carry him everywhere. My wife is extraordinarily clever. Shen Yi reclined on the couch beside the window. No one ever uncovered the secret of the water-reflecting cold flower. I was painting his portrait. Hearing him, I sighed helplessly. I have been a member of your Shen family through 2 lifetimes. If I could not see through even this much, would I not have lived in vain? I do not know what wrong I committed in earlier lives that forced me to marry into your family twice. Shen Yi raised an eyebrow and feigned pain. Does my wife regret marrying me? You are you. I chose another brush and dipped it into pale ink. The Marquis household is the Marquis household. Shen Yi laughed. If my wife dislikes the Shen name so much, perhaps I should take the surname Shu. Living, I would be a man of the Shu family. Dead, I would be a ghost of the Shu family. Through every lifetime, I would belong to your household. Joy rose in my heart, though my words remained stubborn. That is an excellent calculation. If you wish to marry into the Shu family, where are your gifts? Shen Yi immediately poured cold water over my delight. My wife misunderstands. Have you forgotten that my birth mother was also surnamed Shu? He came toward me and placed a smooth white jade seal in my hand. Carved upon it were 2 characters, Shu Yi. So you take your mother's surname. I examined it. Did the Marquis agree? What has it to do with him? Shen Yi answered coldly. You once said that you wished to leave the capital and live elsewhere. Shall we go to Jiangnan? I remembered my previous life and shook my head. Jiangnan is damp. You would only suffer more there. Are you tired of living? He was silent for a moment, as though reluctant to speak. In fact, after I went to Jiangnan in the previous life, my health improved greatly. Looking back, it must have been because there was no water-reflecting cold flower there. It is only that, he paused. I drank too much and no one restrained me. That is why I died alone in a foreign place. Now that I have you, naturally it will not be the same. I put down my brush. You truly want to go to Jiangnan? The crown prince has matters there that require attention. He felt his way back to the window and obediently sat down. It would be better for me to go personally. Spring came earlier in Jiangnan than in the capital and lingered more gently. The crown prince granted us a separate residence there. Without the water-reflecting cold flower to trigger the poison, without wine eroding his health, and without the harsh medicine he had once used against the pain, Shen Yi improved day by day. He faithfully drank the warming tonics prescribed for him, and color gradually returned to his face. But once a person regained his health, other thoughts easily arose. One spring evening, rain whispered beyond the windows. After bathing, Shen Yi sat at the edge of the bed with his black hair loose over his shoulders. His inner robe lay slightly open at the collar, and the warmth of the bath had brought a faint flush to his skin. I looked too long and felt an unwise impulse stir. Shen Yi. I moved closer and sat beside him. We have been married for 2 years. Yes. He drew me into his arms and rested his chin on my head. What is it? Nothing. My hand lingered at his waist. I simply think my husband is very beautiful. He went still. After a moment, the tips of his ears slowly turned red. Has my wife's sickness of the heart finally healed? It has. I admitted it frankly. When I made my intention clear, he caught my hand, his breath uneven. Wait, what is wrong? He swallowed and tried to appear composed. In such matters, how can there be any reason for my wife to take the lead? He reached for the ties of my robe, but he was so tense that his fingers searched at my waist for a long time without finding them. The blush spread from his ears down his neck. Watching him pretend to be calm, I was both amused and tender toward him. You cannot see, let me. I guided him back onto the bed. He became even more embarrassed and pulled the quilt over his head. Shen Yi, come out. I tugged at the quilt. I want to look at you. He held it tightly and refused. What use is hiding your head? You cannot see me looking anyway. A blind man still has dignity. A blind man can still be shy. His voice came from beneath the quilt. And you claimed you had no secret intentions. I struggled not to laugh. He finally revealed half his face, looking both angry and aggrieved. Before, you counted the days until I died. Now you bully me. How is this bullying? I leaned down and kissed him gently. I want you. At those words, he seemed to make a decision. The tension left his body. I am yours, Rulan, he said hoarsely. Firm yet vulnerable, gentle and reverent, I held him. Yes, you are mine. That night, we finally became husband and wife in truth. The fear left by my previous life did not vanish all at once, but he met it with patience and I met him with trust. Afterward, our closeness grew naturally. Shen Yi delighted in teasing me, and I discovered that teasing him in return could make the usually composed man lose every trace of calm. Sometimes he would only laugh, draw me into his arms, and disarrange my hair in retaliation. One day he said, "My wife, there are certain pleasures in being unable to see." He took the white ribbon from beneath the pillow and tied it gently over my eyes. Darkness covered me, and every other sense seemed to sharpen. Well? He asked softly, his voice full of amusement. It is indeed different, I admitted. He laughed and held me close, unwilling to release me. Epilogue. Shen Yi Rulan always believed that I had returned from death with her. She even thought that when I once said I had seen her before, I meant that I had seen her in the coffin of our ghost marriage. That was not the truth. I had never died. Or perhaps it would be more accurate to say that I died only because she was given another life. I first met her when I was 17. The South was full of miasma and was considered a wild and remote land. Yet hidden there were countless extraordinary people unknown to the world. Deep among the mountains stood Chiyun Mountain. 4 eccentric recluses lived there, known together as the 4 hermits of Chiyun. The one most skilled in medicine was called the Medicine Hermit. It was said that he could cure every strange illness beneath heaven. When Father heard of him, he took me south to seek treatment. The Medicine Hermit said that too much cold evil had accumulated in my body. Ordinary medicine was useless. Every day I had to soak in a medicinal spring and then use the fierce sunlight to drive the cold from my bones. Thus each day I spent an entire hour in the spring. Afterward, I put on a white robe soaked in medicinal liquid and sat in meditation on a stone platform at the mountain peak. The Medicine Hermit called it drying the medicine. Plants may be dried in the sun, and so may a person, he said. The medicine must be dried into the very bones before the illness can gradually heal. At that time, Xu Rulan was studying painting under the Painting Hermit. Her father was the Pacification Commissioner of the South. She had been cherished from childhood like a pearl and a treasure, yet she had not grown into a spoiled and overbearing young lady. Instead, she was soft-tempered and gentle. Lord Su considered that a weakness. He hoped that through painting she would travel among mountains and rivers, broaden her knowledge, and gain the ability to stand on her own. But the Painting Hermit had an eccentric temperament. He accepted few ordinary disciples and was even less willing to teach children of powerful families who had been indulged since birth. To learn painting, one must first learn to walk, he said. If she will not climb a mountain, why should she take a master? Why should she paint mountains? So every day, before dawn had fully broken, Rulan had to climb the mountain alone for her lessons. From the stone platform where I sat in the sun, I often saw her take 3 steps and stop to gasp, exactly like a rabbit on the verge of exhaustion. The Painting Hermit favored landscapes. To paint mountains and waters, first observe mountains and waters, he told her. To observe them, first learn to see heaven and earth. He often led her to cliffs, waterfalls, and ancient pines, then left her to observe and understand for herself. One day, he brought her near the medicinal spring. A broken cliff stood there. Beneath it rolled a sea of clouds, and in the distance a waterfall fell like a strip of white silk. It was the finest place from which to view the entire mist-filled valley. The Painting Hermit ordered her to paint the scene to her own satisfaction before seeking him again. Then he clasped his hands behind his back and left. But no matter how many times Rulan painted, she was dissatisfied. A gust of wind carried several discarded sketches toward the medicinal spring. I picked them up and looked. They were not poor. A mountain was a mountain, water was water, clouds were clouds. They were simply lifeless. Can you not paint it? I asked casually from the spring. Rulan jumped in fright. She looked around for a long time and could not find me. Who is there? She asked warily. Through a gap in the leaves, I saw her follow the sound toward me. Do not come closer, I called quickly. I am not dressed. Silence fell. Then came her embarrassed and angry voice. Who wants to look at you? I could not keep from laughing. Treatment had been endlessly dull. She was the first interesting person I had met there. Who are you? She asked again. A patient, I answered honestly. I am soaking in the medicinal spring to drive out cold. She made a sound of acknowledgement, reassured, and sat down to continue painting. The wind carried more discarded sketches toward me. They still looked the same. Young lady, you are painting mountain scenery. What do you see in the mountain? The mountain, the trees, the water, and the clouds, she answered absently. Then what do you hear? She did not answer. I leaned against the edge of the spring, closed my eyes, and continued for her. The waterfall. The wind through the pines, the cry of birds. Something seemed to touch her. I heard the rustle as she stood. I added, many people can paint a mountain. Very few can paint the wind. She was silent for a moment. Then she unexpectedly turned toward my voice and bowed with formal respect. From that day on, she often spoke to the empty air. Are you here today? How should I paint the clouds? What illness do you have? Are you feeling better? I answered patiently. White clouds should be pale. Distant mountains should be indistinct. I am much better. Her paintings gradually improved. The painting hermit praised her spiritual insight. She was so delighted that she hugged her scroll and ran all the way down the mountain. Sunlight fell over her, turning even the smallest strands of her hair gold. I sat on the stone platform and watched her go, feeling both admiration and envy. Such bright days, such vivid, lively days. Days in which one need not weigh every thought. I had never possessed them. I remained on Chiyun Mountain for more than half a year. My health improved considerably. At least on days of wind and rain, pain no longer kept me awake through the entire night. At that time, the Crown Prince received an imperial order to inspect military affairs in the southwest. He passed through the south on his journey and specifically summoned me. We had been close since childhood, and I had no reason to refuse. I left the mountain in haste. During that journey to the southwest, I suffered the injury that destroyed my sight. The physician said that keeping my life was already great fortune, but I discovered some things could be more painful than death, loss, submission to fate. The moment one suddenly realized he was no longer worthy to stand before someone he loved. After returning to the capital, I began drinking. Heaven seemed never to have favored me. My body had only just improved, and then my eyes went dark. I had met someone I loved, yet I no longer possessed even the courage to stand before her. I heard that Lord Shu had been transferred back to the capital, and that Rulan had come with him. I shut myself even more tightly inside Wild Goose Rest Pavilion and did not dare take a single step outside. I feared meeting her. I feared even more that if we met, I would not dare tell her who I was. Soon I overheard servants saying that the Shu family's young lady and my younger brother were in love, and that the two households intended to arrange their marriage. My younger brother was free-spirited, handsome and filled with youthful energy. They seemed well-suited. They should indeed have been together. As expected, the emperor soon bestowed their marriage. That very night I left for Jiangnan. From then on, I asked for no news of the Marca household. I lived in Jiangnan for 7 years. During those years, my stepmother never abandoned her desire to kill me. Poison, assassins, fire, every clumsy method appeared sooner or later. I could not be bothered with her. I also deliberately avoided every report from the Marquis household. I never imagined that Rulan would die while I knew nothing. On the day the news arrived, I destroyed everything in my study that could be broken. The second young madam of the Shen family had died in childbirth. How could that be? She had always feared pain. Even a few strikes across her palm would bring secret tears to her eyes. How could someone like her have been left to die in agony on a birthing bed? I did not believe it. That very night I sent men to the capital. I ordered them to investigate how she had lived through those years and what had truly happened on the day she died. The truth drove me beyond rage. My entire body shook. Only one thought remained. I would kill them. I would kill them all. I found a corpse and destroyed its face, then announced to the outside world that I had died. My coffin was returned to the capital, and the Marquis household conducted a careless funeral, exactly as my stepmother wished. Good. From that moment, I was no longer one of them. It was easier to strike when we were no longer family. When I returned secretly to the capital, Shen Zhao was digging open Rulan's grave. He had gone mad. He held her body and refused to release it, calling again and again, "Rulan, do not leave me." Only then did I learn that they had joined her to me in ghost marriage, taking even the last of her dignity. How absurd. I had failed to marry her while she lived, yet after death I had somehow become her husband. But had she wished it? She had suffered enough in the Shen household while alive. How could she willingly enter a Shen grave after death? The Crown Prince's men killed Shen Zhao there for violating my burial place. His blood splashed warm across my face. I wiped it away and thought only that the smell was far too faint. I killed Song Jiwei and my stepmother with my own hands. Then I went to find the old Taoist priest. He possessed some of the composure of a true cultivator. When he understood my intention, he did not panic. He merely laid down his horsetail whisk and sighed. He told me that he had sacrificed 10 years of his life to use a forbidden art, defy heaven, and send Rulan back to live again. I did not believe him. I forced him to send me back as well. The old priest shook his head. Young master has not died. How can there be any rebirth? Then what must I do to return? Place yourself in death and perhaps you may find life. My attendants were horrified. They fell to their knees and begged me not to believe such absurd words. But I heard none of them. What did I still have to lose? If the priest spoke truth, I would return and protect her. If he lied, my birth characters had already been joined with hers, and my body would truly be buried beside her. I would merely wager my life. If I won, we would meet again. If I lost, I would at least reach my final resting place. I won. When I opened my eyes, the bitter taste of poisoned wine still remained in my throat. Birds sang beyond the window, flowers bloomed, and the overturned wine vessel lay upon the table. It was an ordinary morning in the year I turned 20. Someone came from the palace to report that the Shu family's young lady had asked the emperor the previous night to bestow her in marriage to the eldest son of the Shen family. She had truly returned. She had truly chosen me. But I knew that the priest's warning, that she could marry only me, had frightened her into it. So I arranged for her to meet me beside the lake in the eastern palace. The weather was beautiful that day, and a light wind moved through the willow branches. I sat beneath the tree, my heart pounding. At last she came. As expected, she did not recognize me. I took her hand and let her feel for herself what kind of ruined man she was about to marry. I even hinted that if she did not wish it, I could resolve everything. Everything including the priest's absurd curse. But she answered without hesitation. I choose you. She had her private reasons. So did I. I said nothing more and accepted the hand she offered as though it were the most natural thing in the world. After our marriage, I discovered that her heart had softened. The old priest had sent her back to become a vengeful spirit and repay her enemies. But she wanted to put down the blade. Those people had not yet done anything in this life. She felt she had no standing to hate them, no right to resent them. She even saw the difficulty of my position and asked whether I wished to leave the capital and live peacefully elsewhere. But why? Why should she alone carry the pain of the previous life while the executioners lived on in comfort and peace? I knew she suffered nightmares every night. A child's cry could make her lose herself. Whenever she saw Shen Zhao, her fingertips trembled. What had happened to her did not become false, merely because time had been turned back. So I told her that a sickness of the heart required medicine for the heart. We would leave after the illness was cured. She believed I was speaking of my own sickness and remained beside me without suspicion. She did not know that the medicine I awaited was named Song Jiwei. Shen Zhao's eventually brought that medicine home, just as expected. At the Dragon Boat Festival welcome feast that year, Rulan stood beside me and pressed her nails into my wrist until blood appeared. I knew she hated them, but she hated herself even more. She remembered everything, yet lacked an open and righteous reason to draw the blade. So I deliberately provoked Shen Zhao. I made him believe that Rulan still had lingering feelings for him. He grew cold toward Song Jiwei. The more he failed to obtain Rulan, the deeper his obsession became. Song Jizo tried every method she knew, yet could not turn his heart back. As expected, she could not endure it. She acted against Rulan and exposed herself in a single strike. Then, in the green bamboo grove, Rulan finally had a reason to demand justice for herself. She did not need to feel guilty. She did not need to believe she had become an evil woman killing the innocent. Even then, she was too soft-hearted. She could not bear to watch Song Jiwei suffer, and asked me to give the woman an end. Later, Shen Zhao also died, consumed by grief and illness. When a servant brought the news, Rulan merely acknowledged it and continued grinding ink. She even ordered mourning clothes and offerings prepared. She personally went to the memorial hall, lit 2 sticks of incense, and behaved with perfect composure and courtesy, exactly like a proper elder sister-in-law. At that moment, I knew her sickness was nearly healed. Later, we went to Jiangnan. One spring, she led me outside to admire the flowers. She supported me step by step and walked very slowly that I might stumble. My wife, I asked, tilting my head. I cannot see. Tell me what lies ahead. She answered seriously. There is a white magnolia tree covered in blossoms. Whenever the wind passes, petals fall onto the stone steps. I smiled faintly. Then what does my wife hear? She stopped and tightened her hold on my hand. For a long time, she said nothing. The wind moved through the flowering branches with a soft sound, but it could not hide the growing unevenness of her breath. One tear after another fell onto the back of my hand. My wife's hearing is still not as keen as mine, I said, pretending not to notice. There is the temple bell, the wind through bamboo leaves, and the sound of petals touching the ground. No, she interrupted in a choked voice. I hear the wind, the water, the pines, and the birds. She could not continue. Only quiet sobs remained. I tightened my arm around her and drew her into my embrace, gently wiping the tears from her face. Rulan, I said, it has been a long time.